Welcome to Mind Talks AI, a podcast generated by AI. Today we're going to dive into something pretty interesting.
Yeah, we're looking at this plan by Argus Media to host a big nickel conference over in Bali, Indonesia.
That's right. It's happening on April 23rd and 24th in 2025. And we're going to break down what it's all about.
Exactly. Who should be paying attention, why it matters, and all that good stuff.
Especially if you're involved in battery manufacturing, stainless steel, anything in that nickel supply chain.
Yeah, this could be a big deal.
Okay, so first things first, this whole thing is organized by Argus Media, right?
Right, and they're a pretty big name in the commodity and energy world, They're known for that pricing data, market news, all the analysis stuff.
So they're kind of the experts, it sounds like, for putting on an event like this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be focused on those big market trends and what's happening in the industry. They've got the network for it.
Got it. Okay. So Bali, Indonesia, why there? What's the thinking behind choosing that location for this conference?
Well, I think it's strategic, right? Bali is kind of a central spot for everyone involved in the global nickel market to get together.
Makes sense. So it's not necessarily about Indonesia itself being the main nickel producer, but more about having a convenient hub.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. It's about Argus Media bringing all these different players together in one place.
And I see some Indonesian government bodies are listed as supporters of this conference too. What's that all about?
Oh, yeah. You've got the Ministry of Industry and the Ministry of National Development Planning, or BPANAs, both involved.
It sounds like there are some pretty big things happening in the nickel market right now.
Oh, absolutely. You've got that huge demand from electric vehicles, and that just keeps growing.
Yeah, makes sense.
So figuring out the supply chain, understanding pricing, keeping up with technology, it's all super important. And that's where a conference like this comes in.
Okay, so let's say someone attends this conference.
Mm.
What are some of the things they might learn or take away from it?
I think you can expect to hear from some real experts on those market outlooks, how the supply chain might be shifting, what new technologies are emerging.
So real nitty-gritty stuff.
Exactly. You'll probably have government officials speaking, industry analysts, company reps, all sorts of people.
Sounds like a good way to get a really well-rounded view of what's going on.
Right, and from all those different perspectives, too. That's valuable.
Definitely. And I see that they're also emphasizing networking opportunities as part of this conference.
Yeah, for sure. These industry events, that's one of the biggest draws. It's about making those connections, finding new partnerships, maybe even seeing what the competition is up to.
Makes sense. So who would you say this conference is really for? Anyone in particular?
Well, I think anyone involved in that nickel value chain could benefit, whether you're in sourcing, processing, manufacturing, tech development, even if you're an investor. It's a pretty broad range.
Right. Okay. And they've even got some pre-conference material, like an ebook. Is that right?
Yeah, it's got some interviews with companies like Carboneer and Nickel Industries. I think it gives you a taste of what the main themes of the conference are going to be.
Kind of sneak peek.
Exactly. And it might help you figure out which sessions you really want to attend, which networking opportunities you want to prioritize, that kind of thing.
So if someone is thinking this conference might be right up their alley, are there any deadlines they should be aware of?
I think the early bird discount might have passed, but it's always a good idea to check the Argus Media website for the latest pricing and any promotions they might have running.
Good point. Okay, I also noticed that Argus is running a separate day focused on sulfur and sulfuric acid. How does that tie into all of this?
Right, so that's happening on April 22nd, just before the main conference. And I think it's smart because those markets, nickel, sulfur, sulfuric acid, they're all connected.
Okay, how so?
Well, you need sulfuric acid for nickel processing, right?
Hmm.
So understanding what's happening in the sulfur market, that can have a real impact on production costs and the whole supply chain.
Makes sense. So Argus is giving people a chance to really dive deep into that whole interconnected system.
Yeah, it's like an extra layer of valuable info.
Okay, so to sum it all up, this Argus Nickel Indonesia Conference happening in Bali, it's looking like a pretty key event for anyone who wants a clear picture of what's happening in the global nickel market.
Definitely. And it's a great opportunity to connect with all the big players in the industry.
Argus Media, with their expertise in this area, they're really pulling together a diverse group of people for this.
And don't forget, companies like Nickel Industries and Jindal Stainless, they've been involved in similar events before. It shows you the kind of serious engagement you can expect.
Absolutely.
We've given you a lot to think about with this deep dive into the Argus Nickel Indonesia Conference. Now, the question is, how valuable would it be for you to have that direct access to market insights and to be networking with all these people all brought together by a well-respected organization like Argus Media. It could make a big difference in your strategic planning as the nickel landscape keeps changing. Maybe your next step should be heading over to the Argus website, checking out the conference agenda, and seeing who's speaking.
Great suggestion. Thanks for breaking it all down for us.
You got it.